Like to take a roll call vote.
Carl Hummel, remotely, Vice Chair.
My name is Susan Cahill.
Leah Whiting,
Michael Mandel, Terrence Moore.
And I'm
Isabel.
Bob Sweet.
Isabella Genova, agent.
Good and welfare for the public. Does anybody have any comments? Nobody online? Okay,
Yeah, we can't do a decision on that, but we can discuss it. If there was something. So we'll have to remind each other.
so since it's 7 o'clock now, we'll open the first public hearing. Ecological restoration, notice of intent, Providence Road, Providence Street, Culvert, DEP number 218. Isabella, do you have the rest of the numbers?
0869. We did decide to continue this hearing. We didn't get the comments until this afternoon. The only comment was that we should wait for the Department of Fish and Wildlife comments to come out. So, and either way, even though we got the file number, it's okay that we continued. So we're gonna move the hearing until October 9th.
Do we need a vote or are we good?
I think we'll take a vote, yeah.
Okay, I move to continue public hearing for Providence Street culvert replacement to October 9th, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in, roll call vote, all in favor?
Carl Hummel, aye.
Do I?
Did the sound cut out? I'm not hearing anything.
I'm sorry, Carl, say that again?
Okay,
hear.
now I can hear things.
Somebody did add a nice disclosure on the bottom too, the agenda. You could read that. So, yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, that means it says public hearing, request for determination. Oh, that's,
You can just,
Kingsley Lane,
you
okay.
can just move to number 6.
That's, item agenda number 6, 134 North Ave. Council is here, and, Robert is here. They'll need a minute.
I have an opening statement. I have been advised by Town Council and Mass DEP to recuse myself from this matter as I am considered an abutter.
We need to wait until they come back.
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
I have a question about that as well. I'm in a butter, not to that property, but to the north and to the west.
133.
133.
130. We're only talking about one.
Okay, so I don't have to recuse.
You do not have to recuse
Thank
yourself.
you.
Until they
I just
get
wasn't
back,
sure.
we want to item agenda number 7.
You can stay there, guys. Thanks.
Terrence, or Conservation Areas Planning Outline, Terrence has been working on an outline and he's had Leah and Peter look at it. We're gonna wait 2 weeks to discuss the plan further and provide the document for all the commissioners, but it's basically an outline on how we can plan for our conservation lands and get more activities and community engagement with themes.
Yeah, community outreach is really important, especially with green spaces and the land that we're buying, you know.
Today was actually the volunteer day for the Parks Department, for the Federal Parks Department. left.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Terrence, do you want to talk about it at all? You want to leave
I
that?
think I'd like to wait till next meeting because I don't have Peter's concurrence as yet. It's a little difficult to get a hold of. And I think what we will do is perhaps have Isabella send you the draft, which you've seen. And I have a very short PowerPoint to go with it.
Oh,
So
nice.
we can spend just a little time discussing it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do we need a motion to continue? Item agenda number 8, 22 King Philip Path, administrative approval.
I got a call from a tree company who's removing 3 trees at 22 King Philip Path, potentially within riverfront area of the Mill River,
Oh, I can hear you guys, I'm just in
but it
another.
might be 200 to 300 feet away. So I gave the administrative permit so that they have that on their files, that it was reviewed. The trees are by the house and definitely leaning over. I don't have concerns for it. Heavy materials will stay in the lawn area and they're not stump grinding or removing roots. Because it is on the edge of priority habitat.
So it being outside of my jurisdiction, it's the need of both. Anybody have any questions on that?
I'm glad they asked.
None of this time.
Okay. Item agenda number 9, complaint process discussion.
Carl asked for complaints to be on the agenda at the good and welfare last time. Don't know if he wants to lead discussion.
This is an observation that in the past, under the previous chair who sucked at dealing with conflict, we didn't have a good way for determining what the process would be if we got a complaint from somebody about earthwork or tree removal or sand or stuff like that. So the question is if we wanted to have a more regular process whereby upon receiving a complaint via phone or email or someone stopping by the office, how we would set up guidelines for Isabella investigating that. When Isabella made a determination as to whether it was not an issue, not jurisdictional, but not something that needed to be dealt with immediately, jurisdictional, and something that would cause a lot of harm. If we wanted to come up with some guidelines that we would eventually end up putting in regulations.
I believe I've discussed this as well, so I do think that in order to treat everyone fairly, that we should have a protocol to follow, and that also gives us recourse when people don't come in here or do something without asking. So yeah, definitely in favor of that.
What's your suggestion, Carl? Coming up with a guideline plan? And when could it be ready?
Well, eventually, I'm hoping that this would get rolled into a update of our regulations once we end up retaining someone to help us out with that. But that may not be for several months. So there may be interest with members of the committee who'd like to have something done before that. I see Mike, so I'll stop talking.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, what are the guidelines issued in the wetland protection?
Wetlands Protection Act has an enforcement section that outlines the authorities of the agent and the commission, so I don't quite know what the difference. You know, typically a complaint that I get in the office, I investigate the week of, and whether it's a non-issue or not, bring it to the commission. And if it's needs immediate stop work, then that gets issued through enforcement order, but not everything needs to immediately stop work and get enforcement if it's not heavy machinery and egregious or something that may be permitted. And if they're willing to come into the office and submit a permit same day,
Do we know what other towns do? Is there something we could mirror?
a lot of towns do a notice of violation first and then the commission votes on an enforcement order afterwards.
Okay. That sounds good.
You know, it depends on like the nature of the town as well, because they like, you know, more urban, wouldn't have much of a problem since compared to like something else.
So,
Would it be a lot more work for you to issue a violation instead of an enforcement order? And then, you know, once we discuss it here.
Typically have done that.
Okay.
So I don't know, I just don't know what the difference of what we've been doing.
so that's what it
Mike,
sounds.
who was your question directed at? I'm sorry.
It sounds like, the state has their own guidelines and we're following those at this point.
What's
So-
written in the act is what gives the authority to the
Right, so-
enforcement.
So Carl, at that point, what would you be looking for to make Mendon more, more language in the Mendon bylaws?
Well, the state statute would allow us to work within the actual wetlands themselves. The buffer zone is regulated by the Mendon bylaw. So if basically, if our agent is comfortable with the existing process, we don't need to provide anything more in writing. If members of the committee feel that our current process is being treated fairly with everybody who reports an incident.
Okay.
Could you give an example
That's it.
where this has happened or?
I'm gonna guess, if you were to give an example, Carl, would it be, on the lake where we get complaints and then we have to investigate them? Usually it's after the work is done and then we're chasing the after incident reports.
Well, in part, we're going to be getting more and more reports because people are becoming more aware that we will have Isabella go out and investigate and give them a response. If we don't need any additional paperwork, then, if we don't need any additional process or a regulation, then we don't need to. But I wanted to have an opportunity for other people on the commission to say if they wanted to change the way that Isabella is currently doing things.
Any further discussion? Mike?
Mr. Chairman, Sue asked me a question.
Oh, your initial question, before I was directed to somebody other than Isabella, I think.
Well, it was
It's an overall.
basically a statement.
Okay.
I believe somewhere in the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, there's guidance on that. So I would suggest that Isabel find it and snapshot it and give it to us for starters. We should start there and improve on that.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
you okay with that?
Yeah,
Taking out
the wetland regs 10.08 is enforcement. And then Mass DEP has an enforcement manual as well, which is what I typically reference.
Okay.
I can send those out tomorrow.
So we'll table this until the next meeting and have more information on it.
I think it's gonna be a work in progress. I think we should probably devote 10 or 15 minutes or 10 minutes at each meeting to continually investigate it. And when she sends that out, I'll read it. Suggest everybody else read it,
Yeah, very good.
talk about it, see what your interpretation is, see what Terry's interpretation is, and so on.
And then we can see how we can improve upon it. All right,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just would say it may be, the enforcement manual is really helpful and it may be perhaps, sort of summarizing some of those steps into your own process along with what's in the regulations would be useful. And that's something that we can certainly, in my office, if you all want, a lawyer's view of it, myself or my colleague, Kate, who used to be chair of the NLCC, is available to help.
That would be helpful.
That's very helpful. That's once you get to something that you're comfortable with, if you want just another set of eyes, I hope you'd be happy.
are you all set?
We are ready if you guys are.
At this point, we'll go back to item agenda number 5, 134. Agenda number 6, my apologies. 134 North Ave.
Good evening. Jeff Porter, Holland and Knight for Route 85. With me, Scott Goddard of Goddard Consulting. How would you like to proceed? Would you like an introduction from me or how would you like to proceed?
You have documentation and you're going to make a presentation on DEP findings.
We've shared with the commission a restoration plan, which has been approved by the Department of Environmental Protection. Route 85 is subject to a unilateral administrative order. That plan was submitted and has been reviewed and approved pursuant to that order. The next step in that DEP process would be the execution of an administrative consent order between the department and Route 85. And Route 85 would dismiss an appeal that it has pending of aspects of that enforcement order. Before we can proceed to execute the administrative consent order, we need to know that the Conservation Commission is satisfied with that plan. And so the purpose of the meeting this evening is to answer any questions about that plan, which you all have, and hopefully to get a vote of the commission approving the plan.
I did go through the plans and everything, but I
You have to talk really loud for me because I really hard hearing.
did go through the restoration plans. And I just wonder if you would just demonstrate, just go through it, not in terrible detail, but just
Okay.
what you are planning to do so everyone else can see it.
So, Scott, why don't we bring that easel closer and put that figure up?
Would here be okay, or where would you like?
Where's the best place for you all to be able to see it? We know what it says.
Yeah, I'll put it like.
I'll put it right here.
Okay. So as the commission knows, the commission had concerns about construction at 134 North Avenue.
Excuse me, sir. Mike, can you see that okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Commission had concerns about 134 North Avenue. There was an exchange that is before my time that I think had several iterations where Route 85 and the commission were trying to reach agreement on a restoration plan. Fairly along in that process, the department issued the unilateral administrative order, so the attention turned to Worcester. Mr. Goddard prepared this plan for this evening. The dark blue is the currently existing bordering vegetative wetland adjacent to the man-made former agricultural pond on the other side of it. The blue line is the extent, according to, and this is again before my time, but my understanding is that the blue line reflects the area which Route 85 had proposed to the Conservation Commission to restore or replicate as of when the conversations between Route 85 and and the Conservation Commission.
Spring, summer 2024.
When the,
That was before the borings, correct?
Yes.
when those conversations were superseded by the order issued by DEP. The light blue area is the area which the department and Route 85 have agreed will be restored or replicated pursuant to the DEP order. So you can see this is about 4,000 square feet.
Yes.
And this is about
That's on there, 27,000.
27,000 square feet. So a much more substantial restoration and replication, obviously a considerable effort required and expense incurred by Route 85 to turn what's there now into this. Through Ms. North, questions had been, Ms. North had shared questions about where the Mendon bylaw 25-foot and 50-foot lines would be. It's hard to answer that question because there's never been an agreement on the extent of the pre-work wetlands. So you need to know where your wetland line is in order to calculate out. So what Mr. Goddard has done on this plan is stepped out from the existing wetland 25 feet and 50.
Both the existing wetlands and the area that was first discussed with the commission.
The proposed to be replicated area. But what I want to say about those lines is they're historically interesting, but not really, it won't be really very important in the future, because once this work is completed, this will be the wetland. And the going forward 25 and 50-foot lines for the application of the town bylaw will be from the delineated edge of the restored replicated BVW. So off the chart here, off the plan here. So, but we did want to be responsive to that question. So this is the Route 85's vision of what those lines would be if the wetlands which are present and which Route 85 proposed to replicate were present. These would be those would be the lines.
With that plan being drawn as it is, I assume that wetland is 1-to-1 replication? Or is there 1-to-1, 1.5? What's the replication rate to it?
It's not to 1.5, it's slightly over 1-to-1.
Okay.
Yes.
I think just by way of emphasis, it's important to note that even having reached an agreement with the department over the extent of this, the agreement between the department and Route 85 is not premised on a common understanding of the square footage of wetland that was disturbed by construction activities. The agreement is premised on department required determinations of the presence of hydric soil at depth on the property. Those hydric soils might have been wet before the construction. They might not have been wet before the construction, but in the interest of, I almost said in the interest of getting to yes in a reasonable period of time, but that time has long since passed. And so I'll just say in the interest of getting to yes with the department, the premise of this plan is the department's view of what hydric soils at depth mean, and a plan that's premised on the replacement of those locations in place or replicating them someplace else in a contiguous place. And that's explained in a little bit more detail in the
Yes.
restoration plan, not.
Yeah, section B.
And I guess the two other things that I wanted to say, just to close the loop on the off the record conversations that Ms. North and I have had, we understand that the commission would like to receive future submittals as the plan is executed at the same time that the department receives them. That's absolutely uncontroversial. Route 85 is happy to do that. We also understand that there was maybe some different way of looking at the monitoring that's required by the plan to determine the success of the
We
plan.
are monitoring.
The 2 year, but right, that the DEP agreed plan is 2 years of monitoring, 75% restoration in each of the strata. And Mr. Goddard can talk a little bit more about what that means in plain English.
So the DEP asked not just for 75% in total, but they want each layer to have a success rate of 75%. Yes, and we affirmed and agreed to that.
So 75% in marsh, 75% forest, the wetland, or each layer, like plant layer?
Each plant layer. Yes.
And if that's not achieved, Route 85 has to propose a remediation plan for DEP's approval. And again, that would be something that we'd be happy to also share with the commission if in the unlikely. Mr. Goddard's pretty good at his job. I don't think it's going to be necessary, but if it is necessary, that would be among the things that would be.
Chairman, and the timeline to achieve that?
Well, the 2 years. You mean when does the work start?
No, the timeline, when. If it's not achieved, what's the timeline before he's got to come up with another?
Oh, immediately. If at the end of 2,
That's what I'm saying. So he's got 2 years. This plan has 2 years to see if it,
after it's constructed.
afterwards, right, not from when they start.
Right.
When it's accepted that, yep, everything's there.
And one of the reasons for that is there's multiple inspections
Oh, yeah.
throughout that time, right? So if in 6 months, there's something that looks deficient, we impose corrections then so that we can get to the 75% criteria by the end of the 2 years.
And the DEP is in full agreement.
Yes.
No, they're not in full agreement.
Well,
They insisted upon it.
Well,
It wasn't.
well, sure.
And
I guess that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
DEP is on board with it, whether they insisted it or you proposed it. They didn't fight it.
No, and in fact, there was the percentage, the type of plants that would be planted, the seed mix that would be used were all the subject of discussion with DEP. This is the reason this process started in the fall of 2024 and we're here in the fall of 2025 is there's been extensive back and forth to arrive at this agreement.
But again, I just want to reiterate, both sides of the coin are in agreement to try this plan. Okay.
You know, again, we're going, if we receive the approval that we need from the Conservation Commission, Route 85 will sign a consent order, but it's still an order that specifies that exactly what's in the restoration plan isn't going to happen. And if what happens in the restoration plan, if what's described in the restoration plan doesn't happen, Route 85 will be subject to enforcement, not for violating a law, but for violating the order. It'll be a pretty simple enforcement proceeding. It's not going to happen. Route 85 is going to comply with the order.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
I see that one of the other members has his hand up. Carl?
He's in the audience.
It's muted.
You're muted.
I would not be asking a question as a commissioner, but as an abutter. So my question should be after everybody else on the commission has had a chance.
Any other questions from the commission?
Sure. If I may. Is the area highlighted in gray, is that going to be paved? Is it going to be permeable, impermeable?
No, this is the relocated path of the same material as the existing path.
Which is?
Same width, same material.
Aren't they proposing concrete now as opposed to pavers?
There aren't pavers that are there now.
When I looked at that paperwork, I thought they were proposing concrete now.
It says 12 foot by 2 meters concrete pad.
which
Don't
right,
think it's
which is what's there now, right? Yeah. So the same width, same material, just, do we have in the restoration plan, there's a figure of the existing condition. We don't have a blow up of it for tonight, but if you look in the restoration plan,
Oh, it's in a separate. Separate plan.
yep, there, that,
At that point, it puts that building 12 feet off of the wetland border.
this building
Yes.
approximately.
That was one of the reasons why I believe that we didn't want more work being done with that at first, to find out why and where the wetlands were. But it should
I'm
be
afraid we
solved.
still don't have an answer to you to that question. It wasn't important to get to yes with the department, but I will tell you, in fairness to the department, some of the replication as opposed to restoration, which is going on, is because the department did not want to require the demolition of that barn.
Any other questions?
Our agent has given us a number of comments, which I assume you have seen, and are you amenable to each of the four?
They were the ones that Karis had sent, so they've kind of gone over those further since I posted the motion sheet on Tuesday.
No. The answer is yes plus.
No, they weren't exactly, so again, with the 80% that Karis had sent, that is gonna be the 75% of each strata as DEP's order. And the path is proposed to be relocated as shown on the plan. So I think these comments were kind of resolved. So then needing the board's discussion. My question is, with this plan moving forward, if everything takes, the wetland line would then be ideally the extent that's shown on the plan, and would then cast the new buffer zone. So I'm wondering kind of how we're gonna look at if anything else is proposed 5-10 years from now, the 25 no disturb 50-foot buffer zones, I would think should be cast, that no further work is gonna be proposed in those areas or no further increase imperviousness in the future in those setbacks. I'm wondering what the barn on the left-hand side still doesn't have a building permit. I can release that tomorrow. Same with the pool house, there's no building permit. And the tennis court light shed. I think all three of those are still on hold. But I'm wondering what the right-hand concrete pad, it says proposed structure to be built on top of the concrete pad, so I'm wondering what that would look like permitting wise, or if you're looking for the commission to be approving another structure there, potentially within the new.
I'm not. I mean, my only purpose here tonight is to get the approval of the restoration plan that's necessary for my client to enter into the consent order with the department. The future wetland lines are really clearly, they're delineated on the plans that are in the restoration plan. And they are going to be what they're going to be. And whatever the bylaw says about implications of different areas outside that area is going to be what it's going to be. And I think that that's how it should play out. I think if in the future my client or somebody else proposes work in one of those zones, the commission should consider it the same way it would consider any other
I agree.
applicants work in those zones.
Once this plan is implemented, then the setbacks then carry these criteria, and therefore any work prior from now is subject to the laws of today.
So, exactly. Exactly what the chair said. We totally agree with that.
I just want to make sure we're like clear on the concrete pad, because it does say proposed structure to be built on existing pad. Would we be, or are we in short, is that going to be constructed in the next 2 years and kind of being approved tonight that something can go there, or you would submit maybe an RDA or NOI in the future?
Again, I have no idea what might be proposed to be built there in the next 2 years. My sole purpose, my representation is to resolve the matter with the department. And that's why I'm here tonight, only for what I'm here for. I'm not looking for any commitments about that pad. And I don't think that the commission should wade.
What would our assurances be at that point then, that that pad wouldn't be included into this agreement? That it is right because this plan has been approved?
Because the restoration plan doesn't say anything about that. The only mention of that pad in the restoration plan is as a feature in the existing condition plan. So if it's the commission's judgment in the future that some work that my client or somebody else wants to do in that area requires some sort of approval from the commission, I presume that that'll be shared with whoever the applicant would be, and the applicant will either do as the commission wants, or there will be an enforcement action against them.
I would presume any future work after, I agree with them. We're talking about the restoration areas, what he's here for.
Mhm.
I would presume any work, whether it says proposed shed with overhang, if he wants to do that, he's gonna have to file a notice of intent or RDA.
Request a determination of applicability.
I think this area here has been under scrutiny for so long that if he wants to do something, once he gets this to where in 2 years and everything's all set, if he wants to do something else, I think he'll go through the proper channels.
And does anybody here have any questions about that wall going around being within the 25-foot no disturb, or?
I have a different question. So basically it states, compliance with the Mass Stormwater Standards that groundwater recharge will be increased via the measures of the restoration and whatnot. How is this going to affect the abutters to the north, 136 North Ave? Has that been evaluated?
There were stormwater calculations done in connection with the plan.
I just don't have a copy of it.
I think that plan is, that's, can somebody pull that one up on the screen? Pull up somebody pull up the plan of the work on the,
A written plan or?
no, the figure, the Tetra Tech figure that shows the work to be developed.
C200. The one you mean?
I can't see it.
I think the recharge is being found in the notes. I was gonna say very.
Yeah. So this plan is stamped by John Reardon of Tetra Tech, who's a professional engineer. He did do stormwater calculations to make sure that the stormwater would be captured and infiltrated.
And the state.
Right. I don't want to get
DEP looked at that.
DEP approved it.
Okay.
They adopted DEP. No,
I don't have the
It
copy.
meets their requirements.
Yes, if you look,
They
if,
approve.
if you look at this section of the restoration plan that talks about stormwater and talks about the stormwater standards, even though it's Route 85's view that the stormwater standards don't apply to the construction of a single-family house, we showed to the department's satisfaction that we would meet those standards. And again, that language, that's not something that was presented to the department and then the department accepted it. That was a collaboration, for lack of a better term, to ensure that that the department was satisfied that there would be no degradation of stormwater quality and no increased flow. As you may all know, the sheet flow from the street, public property, on that property is significant. And the department is satisfied that the applicant has provided for the infiltration of that stormwater flow through the stormwater trenches that you see.
I'm well aware of the sheet flow. I'm just down the hill and anything any silt or anything that comes off a construction site goes into our driveway. And last time it was like 2 inches. It had to be cleaned up by somebody else.
Maybe a conversation with the Department of Public Works.
Can I go back to the pad?
Yes,
I'm assuming there's nothing that keep the commission from approving the plan, but placing a condition that any activity or development involving the pad would require the applicant to come back.
I think there's 2 different locations. There's a pad and there's another little location.
Whatever the buildings are that are in question. I understand that the applicant has to come back, but I've always found it's nice to give the applicant notice that that is indeed what should occur in the future if something happens.
Yeah, can I just add, not just the existing conditions, but the restoration site plan talks about existing barn to remain, existing tennis court to remain, and it has that same language for the pad that says proposed structure to be built on existing concrete pad to remain. So it seems to me that the pad remains and any structure that is built later is not necessarily being approved by this site plan. And your client would have to come back to the commission because you're going to be in the 25.
we share that understanding. I guess because we need an unconditional approval to do what we want to do with the department, my preference if the commission were concerned about future construction would be to make clear in your approval of the restoration plan that that's all that you're approving, as opposed to imposing conditions on it that I think are more problematic in terms of the.
Well, that's the whole purpose why you're here. I know, I understand that. I'm not speaking for any other member, but I understand what we're dealing with here. And in the future, if that outfit wants to do something on the print, I'm sure he's fully aware that he's got to go through the proper channels and do the proper filings for it.
I'm not asking for a condition. I'm simply providing notice to the applicant that exactly what Mike is referring to officially, that the commission has said if you're going to do it, you have to do it with those facilities.
I'm not appreciating how what I'm saying and what you're saying are different.
You're saying that the applicant knows that they have to do this.
No,
if they want to.
I'm saying that the commission, that we will be grateful and satisfied if the commission votes that to approve the restoration plan that's been presented to it, and only the restoration plan that has been presented to it. And I don't see how that vote could be misunderstood as permitting any construction that isn't reflected in the restoration plan.
I agree. And what I'm saying is I agree. And when I vote to either approve or disapprove this, I know exactly what I just hope the other
restoration plan.
the other committee members realize it too.
I mean, again, I'm only retained I don't have the slightest idea what the property owner's plans for the property are, other than as reflected in the restoration plan that's been approved by the department.
Okay. Kara, do you have anything that you want to add?
Just that I did have a conversation with DEP council this afternoon, and I wanted to note, although the commission can't see the administrative order on consent, and I'm not sure that the applicant has even seen it yet, because it's still being drafted, there will be some fairly specific timelines and, milestones that they will have to meet, obviously to be negotiated with them, but, and the notice requirement that we had asked and that Attorney Porter has indicated that the commission will receive notice of will include, whatever notice is required under all those milestones. So once the consent order is executed by both parties, it becomes a public document, and then we'll have an opportunity to see it and sort of track what's going on. You are, in a way, being asked to approve something without seeing, I haven't seen all the legal details, you haven't seen every single piece of it, but what's being asked to approve, as the Attorney Porter has said, is the restoration plan. And, that's certainly something that you need to decide whether you want to approve tonight.
I just keep looking at the drawing here, and if we're replicating or restoring, I just keep the fence, the wall there, and the pavement is just, doesn't seem like that's restoration or replication, and I'm not sure why it needs to be there. If you guys are truly doing the restoration.
I'm not an engineer. I'm not prepared to have that conversation.
Yeah, I was
with you.
looking for the, like you were saying, the ACO or whatnot, the correspondence from the Mass DEP. So for me, I just cannot make any sort of decision until I see that.
You're not gonna see
You're
it.
not going to see it until it's executed, and they're not going to sign it until you all.
Okay,
Right, I mean,
That's
let me make,
that's a fallout, because we don't have control.
right,
The state took it over.
I know that.
This is, in my opinion, this is a courtesy for allowing Concom
Yeah.
to be presented with this. So,
actually, can I clarify?
Sure.
Excuse me, just to clarify that, the department's position, and I believe Ms. North will, confirm this. The department didn't care one way or the other whether we came to the Conservation Commission.
I realize
My client said, we're not executing an administrative consent order until we know that the Conservation Commission supports it. If we don't obtain the Conservation Commission support to this plan, we will tell the department that we're not executing the consent order. And we will continue on with the appeal that's been stayed for the past year. If the commission does approve the restoration plan, we will hopefully get the draft administrative consent order I thought we were going to get 2 weeks ago. And we will see if we can reach agreement on it with the department. And if we can, we'll move forward from there. But this is not the end of the process, but for my client, but it's an essential next step in the process. And regardless of what the department's position might be, we're not resolving our issue with them unless we've resolved the issue with you. That's why we're here.
if.
For the clarification.
Oh, as I said, I believe that your statement backed up what I said. The applicant is giving us the courtesy to continue to have some input on. I believe.
We're here.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying.
And we appreciate, by the way, being put on the agenda at relatively last minute. We appreciate that. Once we got to yes with the department, we were eager to try to move things along as quickly as we can. But we realized that you slotted us on the agenda later than we would have normally been slotted on the agenda.
If there are no more questions with the commission, we can open it up to the audience.
Sorry, I don't mean to nail anything on the head, but I just want to make sure everyone, so the restoration plan talks about building the stone wall and the path as part of the plan. The barn that's under construction, I assume that applicant wants, or the property owner wants to move forward finalizing that, is that something that you would like the commission to also approve with this? Not the other concrete path, or you just want what's written in the plan?
I'm not, I don't appreciate, again, based on our lines, I don't appreciate what the Conservation Commission's role in the construction of the barn is, but it's,
Triggered everything initially was that the barn started being constructed within 100 feet. And that was what led to the original enforcement order in the beginning. So that was what, like, I just want to make sure, do you want to lift the building permit and let that go through this approval?
well, I guess let me answer it this way. It's not part of the restoration plan to demolish anything other than the things that are proposed to be demolished under the plan.
I believe the agent, what she's saying is right now there's a stop work order on construction of that building. Is the applicant looking to have that stop order lifted in conjunction with the approval or not of the
The
restoration?
reason I'm smiling is I have to assume that the applicant would like a stop work order to be lifted, but it's outside
Of this.
it's outside the scope of my representation at
It's
this.
outside what we're trying to discuss here.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, if you're asking me to guess, I would take an educated guess that if there are things that the commission thinks prevent the completion of things that are already either constructed or partially constructed, that aren't within the area that's in light blue. Yes, I'm sure my client would like to be able to lift those things, but that's not why I'm here
Okay,
tonight.
so my question now is to you, Attorney. Do you see any reason to continue with this stop work order or lift it? Is there a preference either way?
I think since the agent indicated that that was sort of what started the entire enforcement action, and that enforcement action has really been, the town's enforcement action has essentially been superseded by DEP, even though it's not a superseding order because it's an administrative consent order. I think that once the consent order is executed by both parties, then the stop work order can be lifted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carl?
Hi, Carl Hummel, 15 Misco Road. As an abutter, I have two questions for the applicant. The first one is at the beginning of your presentation, you used the phrase agricultural pond. My understanding from the due diligence I did before I bought my property and about 1/3 of the swamp is that it has never been agricultural. Could you clarify that, please, and whether it has an impact on the restoration plan?
Members of the commission will have the opportunity to hear more about that in the course of other proceedings relating to other property in the area. But the result of your research is inconsistent with the result of our research.
Okay. My second question is on the bottom of page 4 of the wetland restoration plan. It talks about plantings for deep water marsh area. Are those the same plants that are currently in the existing plants are they the same plants that are in the rest of the swamp?
Hold on, let Carl talk.
You don't really answer that.
Sorry. Carl, your question?
Oh, did it not come through?
No, I heard the question. The question was, are the plantings for deep water marsh area at the bottom of page 4 the same plants that are currently in the existing BVW? And the answer to that question is, I have no idea. These are the plants that the department wanted.
Okay.
Carly, talk about the high bush.
It does say the plants were selected to match other marsh and forested wetland vegetation in the vicinity.
Okay. I didn't see that text. All right.
Goddard might have, the professional wetland scientist might have something to say about it.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was designed to match existing conditions without replacing it with purple loosestrife.
Well, just.
So no invasive plants are being planted, but the desirable are being
I was just hoping you can pull some of it out, because it's just choking that whole pond, you know?
The loosestrife, that's a tricky one.
It'll grow itself.
All right. My
That answer
final-
your questions, Carl?
I'll reserve any further comment on agricultural pond until such time as it's actually going to be used as part of a used in the decision-making process. My final observation to the commission, based on what I heard the two attorneys saying at the end, is my feeling is that the reason why the Concom is being asked, the Concom is being told, if you do not approve this, then the deal is off and the appeal process happens. My feeling is that that is because the property owner realizes that he's got a lot of stuff, buildings and pavement within the 25 no disturb. He doesn't want to sign this very expensive order and then have Concom come in and say, no, you're not allowed to have stuff in the no disturb area. You have to yank that out even after you've done all the DEP work. So I believe that's why the Concom is being brought into this matter. And since I'm not speaking on it, I don't have a position one way or the other. I'm not voting on it, I mean. So that concludes my comments.
Any other comments or questions? Anybody like to make a motion on this?
I think I drafted one, so do you have recommended language or just so?
I'll make a motion to accept the restoration plan as presented.
Is there
Or approve.
approve?
She said.
Is there a second? A second. Motion's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. All in favor?
Discussion.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. All in favor?
Mendeleer, aye.
I abstain.
I'm an A. I'm an A.
Can't hear you. She said no.
Council's recommendation to the commission would be what?
To approve the plan. I don't think you're going to get better than this, given the extent of the restoration that's been done. I think you are going to have to live with the incursions in what will be the resulting 25 and 50 foot no touch, no build, because DEP has said that's okay with them, and that the commission is not part of this process. And believe me, I did ask. When this order came out, I reached out to their attorney directly and just got, can't talk about it, can't talk about it, can't talk about it. So, it's their baby and it's their decision. I think it's a better result at the end of the day than what you were negotiating a year and a half ago with the applicant. So I think it is, in my opinion, it's a positive result for the commission and the town.
The implications of voting no?
I'm sorry.
The implications of voting no?
It becomes the wild, wild west, and there may be litigation, and, maybe, if you vote no and there's some things that the commission can tell to Route 85, they want you to consider negotiating with DEP, but I don't know what DEP is going to do. I imagine the negotiation has been a year and it's taken a fairly long time. I have sort of followed along and gotten updates. So I don't know that you're going to get any more than what you've got here. And that's a very pragmatic approach. It's certainly not perfect. Those, resulting incursions are things that you would prefer not to have. But realistically, even if this doesn't happen and you're left with the commission's jurisdiction and the commission wanting a swimming pool and a barn to be removed, we're going to litigate that, and it's going to cost time and money, and it's going to be challenging. And we'll give it our best shot, but there's no guarantee you put it in the hands of somebody else. This at least gives you something at the end of the day that I don't think you would have gotten in your own negotiations.
And if I may, before I vote, one last, I'd like to have the recommendation of our agent.
I agree with Karis. I think I'm happy to see that there's restoration and not just replication as there was proposed originally. I think it's unfortunate to have encroachment in the setbacks, but I do think for the size of the lot and the amount of restoration, it's a lot of plantings and a lot of effort that's going to go in. And I think the stone wall will delineate the wetlands for a long time, as long as the stone wall stands. And I think that's sufficient as a visual barrier for the future.
I'll vote yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
It's in New Jersey, yes.
Carl Hummel abstain.
So, do I vote?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes. So, the way it stands is 2 abstentions, 1 no, and 3 yeses. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. And thank you for squeezing us between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. For somebody who has a 6 o'clock fight tomorrow, so I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay, so, now, updates.
For the hearing at 8.
Yeah, we do.
That would be, 14th Lane.
Oh, Jeff, your jacket.
Yeah, I remember.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. How was everybody else?
Good. So you're here for an RDA?
Yes.
Let's get determination of applicability 14th Lane, amendment number 25/008. Install permeable pavers for patio with a gazebo on top. Patio within the footprint of the existing yard. Removal of hazardous trees, grading paved driveway area, within buffer zone, recess areas, and intermittent streams. When we were at the sidewalk, are you looking to put that driveway on the right side of the house?
That wasn't my intention. I don't know if there's any regulations with that. So I guess you tell me what my limitations are, I guess.
No, the reason why I was asking is because it looked like there was work being done there. There was a pile of stone there.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess a couple weeks back, or maybe like a month or two back, Isabel actually came to the door and they thought the same thing, that we were building something there. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kinsley Lane and like the amount of potholes. Yeah. So then right in front, the Wagner's place, there was just giant like cross section where people would use kind of, since it's so narrow, to kind of take a little detour. Yeah. So it just became like almost a pond of water, and it would just never drain.
Mhm.
So we just had excess material from some of our jobs that compacted well. So I brought it over, and I was just kind of spreading it along the road whenever I had some time here and there. Yeah, but no plans on building anything there. I don't know if I can even, so
Are you planning on seeing that area?
at some point, yeah, at some point, yes.
So where the little skid steer was, that's not going to be a driveway or anything.
No.
The materials on the other side of the house, they're for the use of the patio.
Some of it again was for the road, just the larger potholes, which seem to be already filled in. So at some point, that's just going to get out of there.
All the pallets full of papers.
All of there, that has to get returned.
Curbing, the granite.
All of it. Yep, nothing stays. Just didn't want to do anything further without getting.
Reattach the gate, the fence that's there.
The gates, the gazebo needs some work. Regrass and regrade all the with like some good loam, and reseed and clean up.
That's on the side of the street, I assume.
Which side are you speaking of?
Where are you regrading?
I guess just anywhere that needs grass. So not really regrading to pitch the water in any way. I guess just kind of fluff up the dirt, throw some good loam and then seed.
Like in the front, not around the back where the fence.
No.
That's what we had seen is that where the fence starts,
Yep.
everything over there looks like it's in good shape. So, that would be our concern, would be to make sure that any work being done is inside the fence.
Yes.
Or closer to the road.
Correct. Yeah. It would. So, I mean, I think you guys did a site visit. So it'd be within that fenced area where you just don't see any grass and it's just dirt. And then in front of the house where there's a walkway, we threw some dirt there too to regrade it because of the walkway, and it would just be there. And then that area where the skid steer is.
You regraded and something.
Yeah. Like leveled off a little bit. So the water pitch is just enough and get some good loam.
Did you have any awareness that you might need a permit?
So no, so with the permit, I called in to the building department once. And so my line of work, we do this all the time. So we work in like Cape Cod, all over. And we've reached out to multiple building departments and we always get the same answer that when it comes to landscaping structures, even with the gazebo, as long as you're not putting up walls, you're not required one. I had no idea that I was within the 50 feet of the environmental stream in the back, which kind of created that RDP need. So no, I wasn't aware of that.
It's supposed to be 100 feet.
50-foot no build, 100-foot setback for wetlands to
Okay.
work within.
Okay.
Our
So,
bylaw has a exemption for patios and decks outside of 50 feet in previously disturbed areas. But I do think we are within that 50 feet a little bit. So I think, because you had stopped work the day I showed up, what's left in the patio area?
so the patio itself, again, the seating around the patio and the finishing touches and the actual structure of the gazebo. And that's about it. And then just putting up the fence links and everything.
Fire pit, is that the one that's on your back porch?
Excuse me?
Fire pit?
Your drawing shows a fire pit.
Yeah, so it's just a mobile one.
The little metal one.
Yeah, but that would go within that
on top.
25, and 25 feet away from any structure.
Then, so you want to pave the driveway parking area that you already have, or?
So yeah, just repave it because again, it sits lower than the actual soil and the other walkway. So it just, I guess, more of a curb appeal if it just matched the grade of everything else.
Is there pigment there now?
Yes.
So will you be removing the pigment?
Yeah.
Regrading?
Yep.
Reinstalling pigment?
Yes.
Would it be difficult for you to reseed the area where the tree in the middle and the pile of rocks and the machine?
To do what?
Reseed it?
No, but I have intentions of doing so.
Assume you're taking that tree that's leaning towards the house down.
There's a few. So since we've been there, there's a few, like the one in the front yard. It looks like it's in good condition, but when you walk up to it,
Hollow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of scares me, any kind of, yeah, and we get excessive wind through that little access point that we have to the lake. There's like 2 or 3 in the back of the house that I've kind of caught eye, same thing, hollow. And they put 2 of them lean towards the house. And then the one, if you're facing the house to the left, where we had that access point or where the pallets are, there's one there that leans towards that. And to be honest, that one leans over power lines and then into our patio area.
After the, Mass Electric, they may take that down.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know Rich, mechanic at the corner. He actually mentioned that,
Yeah.
that he's been trying to reach out to them. And I think the Wagner, same thing. They have a few trees on theirs that are impeding on the power lines and could become an issue.
What's your recommendation?
I think since it's within previous disturbed lawn area, within the fence, I think the patio is fine. I think the trees that are threats to the homes are okay. I think if it's far enough away, and it's also cheaper for you, you can leave a snag.
I was just gonna say
10
that.
feet or 8 feet, and you'll get wildlife habitat. But I wouldn't recommend that if the snag would still be close enough to
Okay.
fall. And then any heavy machinery not within kind of naturalized vegetated areas. I would say the silt fence on the right-hand side of your property, I would leave that up until that's stable with vegetation.
Okay.
Whether you do lawn all the way up to the woods, or if you seed, there's a lot of wetland for conservation seed mixes that have nice wildflowers. If you didn't want to do grass, you would then have to mow.
Okay.
Let's do a shade mix.
Shade mix?
Well,
Yes,
it's a wet and shade mix, because you're close to the.
wetlands and tree lines.
Any questions from the commission? Any questions?
Observations from the site walk?
I'm sorry, Carl?
I was not able to attend the site walk for health reasons. Is there people who did go? Do you have any observations?
We pretty much addressed them already. The
Okay.
trees were, probably know not to bring heavy equipment in there and pull stumps.
Yeah, I wouldn't pull them anyway, so I'm sure I would have to, I guess, notify the company that I get to do so, to do that.
They can cut the trees, but the stumps, if anything, the commission may recommend leaving them, or they may recommend stump grinding. It's
So no actual removal of the roots and everything.
correct.
Okay.
We just don't want to see an excavator in there pulling stumps.
Understood.
I think the one in front of the house is
Should go.
probably out above the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That one.
that maple, the one that's hollow.
okay.
If you want to help out with habitat, you can leave some of them as like 5, 6, 10-foot snags if they would not adversely impact anything else or be at a risk of falling over on people.
Yeah.
Then they
Do that.
become homes for woodpeckers, squirrels.
It's affiliated. It'll be fun. Woody Woodpecker will come.
Definitely.
At this point, any more discussion? I'm looking for a motion to accept the RDA.
I move to accept the RDA for Kinsley Lane.
We need to close the hearing first.
Oh, sorry, I move to close the public hearing for Kinsley Lane. MEN number 25008, that's why I need glasses.
For a second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
You
I,
have to take a roll call. I'm here.
Roll call vote, all those in favor?
Carl Hummel, aye.
Susan, I.
Leah, I.
Mike Mandalia, aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We still have one more thing to do. I move to issue a determination of applicability with a +2 being a -3 for 4 Kinsley Lane, MEN number 25-008.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, all those in favor?
Carl Hummel, aye.
Susan, I.
Leah, I.
Mike Mandalia, aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I'll have the permit Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
Email or mail it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Isabella.
Don't do things in your backyard.
Now I know. Now I know. Won't happen again. I appreciate it. Is there anything else?
Well, you're all set.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Take care.
You too.
All right, updates.
The Providence Street, we did have that site visit. If anyone has comments that they want relayed to the engineer before the hearing, I can do that. I'm still working on the plans for the amendment with 37 Kinsley. They did do the butter notice and the legal ad, so it should be on the next agenda.
And they got that in time.
2 Nipmuc filed an NOI today for on the lake. So that'll also be at the next meeting. Schedule a site visit for that.
What's going on there?
They have to refile. That's the one with Mike Dean and Benny Pinto.
Oh,
refile.
oh, yeah.
So they met that deadline as well. There's a COC request for 220 Millville that will also have a site visit for. I've been in contact with the consultants for the regulations, waiting on proposals, but hopefully that's coming in the upcoming meetings. I think that's it on my end.
Okay, the task force, they're wrapping up their year. We probably won't get much from them. Yeah, I believe they have an October meeting coming up, and that'll be it for the year. Peter's not here for land use, so agenda item number 11. Given approved minutes for September 11th, 2025.
Yeah, I did notice just a little switcheroo here. It said, oh wait, it says that, I nominated, Leah for vice chair, but it was not, chair. Just a little.
I think they're both in there. I think you nominated Leah for chair first and then also for vice chair afterwards.
I don't think so.
No, I think
That's cool.
Leah nominated Susan for vice chair. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's what I thought, but
Okay.
Was the meeting taped?
Yes.
I suggest that
We'll
Isabella
review the
review the tape before, before we vote on that.
oh, I had no idea that there was gonna be a board on vice chair.
All right, so we will table the meeting minutes for September 11th, 2025 until our next meeting. Number 12 is good and welfare for the commission. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss?
I do.
Carl?
I attended the meeting of the Capital Planning Committee on Monday night. One of the items that the fire department is looking to get is a inflatable boat and trailer that they would be able to use on Lake Nipmuc instead of relying on mutual aid from other towns. I said that the Conservation Commission would be interested if the town ended up owning a boat that we could perhaps send a code enforcement officer out at some point. And just we'll see how that influences the decision making or whether that actually happens or whether an inflatable boat would be usable by anyone other than the fire department.
That be a condition that we put, that it would be mutual use, police and fire?
And conservation.
Why not?
Conservation first.
That's a question that you'd have to address with the fire chief because he's the one making the capital planning request.
I can rent my 40-foot Sea Ray out.
So is everyone pleased with your request?
No, I believe one of the members on the CPC actually owns property on the lake, and he sort of snorted at the whole idea of us sending someone out, a code enforcement officer for a day, surveying beaches and docks to see if they had the appropriate paperwork on file with us.
I have a John boat with a motor. Yeah.
That sounds about.
There's a liability difference with a town code enforcement officer using a town boat as opposed to borrowing somebody's private boat.
Okay,
Got you.
thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I think we should do the cardboard boat race next year, though.
As a commission?
Yes, why not?
The other fun thing that happened is the select board are all getting represented by scarecrows, each of the 5 members. Katie Moxham, the admin, is volunteered to make caricature representations of all of the members, including their distinctive flannel shirts or hats and so forth. So that's another town activity we may want to think about participating in future years.
I'll make scarecrow.
Will that be presented on the town common?
It's the regular scarecrow thing that's happening this October.
The pumpkin show. Okay. Item number 13, items not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Anything? Then I make a motion, or I should say, looking for a motion to.
I make a motion to adjourn. There's a second.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those, roll call vote, all those in favor?
Carl Hummel, aye.
Susan, I.
Leah,
Like, Randall, I.
Aye. Motion,
hey.
You okay, Carl?